I'm Michael Connor, and you know what? Maybe the Houston Texans are back. Maybe they aren't. But one thing is certain. They played a much better football game today against the San Francisco 49ers than they did a week ago against the Seattle Seahawks.
Saying Norfleet here. Congratulations, D'Amico Ryans and the Texans players. You get that stench of last Monday night off of you for another week. There were some things to like. We celebrate, but then we also need to quantify, I should say qualify, what just happened and who they just beat.
Yeehaw! It's time for the Texans Squad. Everything Houston Texans, every week. Bringing you the big hits, game-changing plays, and all the action straight from the Lone Star State. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Saddle up and squad up. It's the Texans Squad Show, starting now.
Welcome post-victory to the Texans Squad Show. I'm Michael Connor. That's Stan Norfleet. Wade Smith will join us here in a few moments. He's making his way back to his house to get into the show with us. John is at the game today. If he can pop in, he's going to pop in as well to give us some of the reaction from the locker room as the Texans get honestly, Stan, as we start this show off today, pretty easy victory, a game that they really dominated throughout. Now, I know that that's a 49ers team that does have a lot of injuries and whatnot, but they came into this game 5-2. We talked about it. I didn't think that the Texans would win today, and they came out from the jump and really moved the ball all day. I think the one thing that you stick out to start is that the Texans probably left a lot of points out there on the field. There's a lot of field goals again today, but I mean, for what it is, they needed a response after that Monday Night Football game, and they gave it today against the 49ers.
They did. The effort should be commended. D'Amico and the rest of that coaching staff, they should be pleased overall with the effort. This was going to be a game with no Christian Kirk and no Nico Collins. You wanted to see if the young guns could step up and when they're expected to step up. And by and large, Higgins, Nolan, Hutchinson, along with Woody Marks, by and large, those young guys answered the bell. So I think it's impressive, and certainly with D'Amico going up against someone he knows very well, his first time facing Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. That's not a backup quarterback in Mac Jones. So some people, like me, will say, hey, that's a banged up San Fran team. That's not the real San Fran. At the end of the day, though, that same team essentially won versus Atlanta a week ago. So you congratulate the team. We appreciate the effort. I'm going to categorize this game, MC, in alignment with how I felt about the Baltimore Ravens win.
I can see where that game falls into this category slightly because of I don't think that I look at this game today and go, oh, I believe that this is some unbelievable win because the 49ers, are so banged up. But they were a 5-2 football team. So I think I put it higher than that Ravens win. I think the thing that gets me the most excited is that I personally loved the football game that CJ Stroud played today.
That's where I was going to go. Yep.
I felt like he was decisive. I felt like he made decisions all day. I felt like he made smart decisions. He ran the football when he needed to run the football. He did a lot of things that were really great, and that's what happened in the football game today.
It looked as if CJ were more comfortable today. It looked like, and look, the Texans got out to a 16-0 lead. What's happening, Wade?
What's going on, fellas? What's going on?
All right. Just talking a little ball per usual. So CJ and that offense, they get out to a 16-0 lead. It just looked like getting in a rhythm and groove early alleviated a lot of pressure. This is the most scrutiny that D'Amico and that team had been under coming into this game that they had been under, in my belief, in the 3 seasons that he's been here. So CJ, to me, got in a groove. He settled.
Well, Sniper got Stan. Well, hi, Wade. We'll let Stan's connection reconnect here. We were talking about, just how great of I think this was a great response, obviously, to the Monday Night Football game that you had against them. But the thing that stands out the most to me, the point that Stan was making, is that it kind of, for him, goes to the area where they played against Baltimore recently, that kind of game. Now, I think we can all agree that San Francisco is incredibly banged up. They've lost a lot of football players this season. They're missing a lot of key pieces, but the Texans are still facing a 5-2 football team today. So that's why, to me, it's a higher a higher spot than I would put that Baltimore game. But what I was saying was I think that the biggest thing out of it is that it felt like we saw the best CJ that we've seen in quite some time today. What did you think of his game today?
Yeah, I really loved his pocket presence. I loved his ability to go through his progressions and make plays down the field. And then when the plays weren't there down the field, checking the ball down to Woody Marks, checking it down to his running backs and tight ends, and making multiple plays like that. It just looked like he was so much more comfortable out there. I thought the offensive line played at a very high level, especially on the protection front. When you have over 400 and I don't know, it's like 450 yards or something, probably crazier than that. It's probably more than that. The last I saw it was like 447 yards, but they were able to produce running the ball and throwing it, but I really thought they protected CJ well and gave him time to go through his progressions and find his receivers downfield. And a bunch of guys stepped up, but I would say to CJ, that was his best performance of this year and the best performance I've seen out of CJ in a while. It's been a while since you've seen one of those vintage 2023 CJ Stroud like performances, and this reminded me of that. And I think it just started with him being comfortable, and that was the point I think Stan was making before he got cut out.
Sorry about that, man. People trying to call me. I'm doing a post-game show. Y'all should know better than that. If you guys want to know what's happening, what I think. I do want to point out a couple things that I want to add to Wade's comments there. I thought the time of possession was critical. I mean, it was 41 minutes to 18 or something, whatever that is, 19. So, I mean, that's just substantial. You know, Wade will attest. Anytime you're controlling the football and taking opportunities away from the other offense, even though, you know, they're banged up. When I say they're banged up, McCaffrey played, Kyle Juszczyk played, George Kittle obviously played. So they still had some guy, Trent Williams played. They still had guys that performed at a high level on that side of the football. But to keep that away from the offense and then to score, to cash in and at least get some points on the board early, that time of possession I thought was critical. The other thing that I want to highlight is the number of people that got involved in the offense today. 9 different backs, tight ends, or wide receivers got at least one catch. So I thought that was also critical and helpful to not put too much pressure, right? Nico and Christian Kirk out. Who's going to help? Everybody. Dalton Schultz chipping in, Woody Marsh chipping in. We know about Hutch, and then Higgins and Knowles. So I thought that's a positive sign. This is one of those building block games offensively that they can take this momentum, and when the competition gets steep, coming in next week when the Broncos come in here, you can take this as a building block and move forward. But I do like and appreciate how CJ surveyed the field and got the ball out to several different people.
I think there's something else that needs to be brought up about this too, guys, with CJ in particular. Third down play today was fantastic. They have been really bad. Now, I know we'll talk about red zone stuff in a bit because there was still a little bit of red zone stuff. But, you know, for the first time this season, I was trying to find I don't think they have – I don't know why they don't put the number up there. But I know that their third down efficiency, 9 of 16 today. What did you guys see in terms of play calling in those kind of situations when they needed to get yards that maybe encouraged you compared to what we've seen recently?
Well, I think they were in a lot of third and longs. I seem like I mentioned it. There was a lot of 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 2s. There was very, very convertible third down situations. So that's a start for you having success on third down is doing well on first and second down. I know it's a cliche, but it's the facts. It's the truth of the matter. As far as the actual play calling on specifically on third down, I don't have a thought about that, but I do think that in first and second down, the play action passes that they did, I thought that they worked well together. They were able to open up what San Francisco was doing on the defensive side of the ball, getting chunk plays, but also hitting those check down plays that were able to convert and put you in positive down and distance situations. But yeah, I think for the most part, they did a good job on first and second down, and they helped them on third down. And then all of a sudden, I saw a couple of QB sneaks. There was for some reason we couldn't get any QB sneaks last game, and I didn't understand why. And then I'm at the game and I'm watching it in the first drive, and there's a QB sneak. We convert. Okay, great. And then later on in the game, a QB sneak. So, I think that play needs to be a staple in every playbook, but especially in this playbook, so that you can convert, because a lot of times in those 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 2s, when you try to hand the ball off, you've seen we've consistently got stopped in those situations. So hey, let's if you got a manageable down and distance where you convert with a QB sneak, let's call that play. I thought play calling overall was just better. I think a lot of people had a lot of pressure on them from the outside world, and maybe I don't know if they heard the pressure or not, but a lot of people today that had people talking down on them this whole week, they played well. They stepped up and played at a high level. That's either the offensive line. You talk about Nick Caley. You talking about C.J. Stroud. Trying to think who else. There was the no-name receivers, the Iowa State receivers. All those guys stepped up. Barrios, before
I
he
was getting ready
got
to say
banged
him.
up,
Yeah.
like he was playing well early in the game. So I think everybody that was having issues, just from the outside noise, and like I said, maybe they heard that noise or maybe they didn't. But those guys that needed to step up, I felt like they stepped up today.
I think, and I agree with everything that the Wade said there. I think they were able to stay on schedule, stay in third and manageable. And again, having some success early, it gave them confidence. They just had a different pep in their step. Maybe being at home contributed that as well. But I think everything they're trying to do, based on what D'Amico and the coaching staff tell us, everything they want to do offensively stems around the run game. And I thought when you look at this game as opposed to some of those other defeats in the past, you got 28 carries and about 118 yards, about 4.5 yards per clip between Woody Marks and Chubb collectively. And so I think when you're able to run the ball consistently and you stay with it throughout the course of the ball game, and then CJ's not turning the ball over and guys aren't fumbling the football, it keeps not just the time of possession, it keeps you on schedule, and then it sets up all of those play action type things that you want to do. I also think this game compared to when we saw them on Monday night, I thought CJ was much more precise. He did not miss as many of those open opportunities and open receivers and targets. So I think all of that stuff works in concert. And then the defense was just lights out as they usually are.
Yeah, they usually are. And we didn't even. I mean, I know the way you brought it up that they blocked well. CJ zero sacks today. That's
Clean
kind of a
game.
big deal. Your quarterback, stands clean in the pocket all day. You're probably going to have some success.
Yeah, I thought the offensive line played well, and there was times that CJ also helped the offensive line out by scrambling and getting up the field and getting positive yardage.
Yeah.
That was another thing that people talked about is, CJ using his legs. I think that's just something that going into every game, CJ has to make his mind up that, hey, if it ain't there, I'm gonna take this 5 yards. I'm gonna take this 8 yards. I'm gonna take this 12 yards, because those are the type of plays that hurt defenses. It breaks their backs because they're playing man coverage and they got everybody locked up. And then you pull the ball down and get you 8, get you 6. That's tough to defend. So, I thought that he did a good job with that. But I think just overall, the offensive line played at a high level. They played their best game this year. And people will say, hey, San Francisco was beat up. You lose your top 2 receivers, that doesn't just affect CJ Stroud. That affects the offensive line, because in all likelihood you got to hold your blocks longer. And I thought they did a good job of doing that. Yeah, a couple of holding penalties here and there, but they did a good job of giving CJ Stroud time, and they were able to run the ball effectively. And Stan mentioned it earlier as far as that time of possession. Listen, there was a drive that went 12 plays, 94 yards, 6 minutes and 7
Mhm.
seconds off the clock.
Mhm.
If you were to ask the Texans organization, the people that make decisions over there, if you can draw me up a perfect scenario of how we move and operate on offense and what the drives look like, it would be that a 12-play drive, taking over 6 minutes on the clock and finishing with a touchdown. So that you have to give a lot of credit for the offensive line for allowing and making things like that happen.
It's nice to come on this show and not have to talk about negative when it comes to them too. That's a good thing. Let's do. I mean, I'm not going to say that we're going to be negative, but let's talk about one of the things that did stand out today in terms of what they did not accomplish. We'll do that here in a brief moment. Locked on Texan Squad Show. Before we get there, though, I wanted to remind you guys that, first off, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss out on any excitement this sports season. Whether you're following the NBA, NFL, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to just play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup. And, well, you can play anywhere that PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. All kinds of offers across the app. You're going to see the new stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph Curry's threes, points, and assists in the same lineup. So many cool features across the app right now. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. One more message before we get back to our discussion on the Texans' victory today over those San Francisco 49ers. I want to tell you guys about Rugiet. Let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired, or it happens every once in a while, or to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it to, I'll get started. You just get connected with a board-certified doctor, 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If you're prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door, processed fast and simple and private. It's all handled, again, by real doctors. About confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matter. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNFL so they know that we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. Well, the Texans made moves today, guys, on the football field that led them to a victory over the San Francisco 49ers. Really, I mean, again, I know that this is a football game that, probably was a little bit closer than the score indicated because the Texans dominated so much. Wade, you mentioned it earlier, 475 total yards for the Texans in this one today, 41 minutes of possession out of the 60 minutes in this football game. That's my question now. The one thing that sticks out, and I don't want to be Mr. Negative because I feel good after today. I feel good about a victory. They were bad in the red zone again today. They did not get enough touchdowns today. There were too many field goals again today. They were 1 for
5.
1 for 5 in the red zone. Was that okay? That was the final number. Was 1 for 5 in the red zone. What do you guys think? Should I be not so discouraged by it, or is it still something that we got to continue to see? And is it simply that maybe they don't have all their weapons available to them to where they're not as lethal in the red zone? What is it?
I mean, it doesn't help that you don't have Nico Collins, you don't have Christian Kirk. That's where those guys can get their money. That's where they make
Dalton
their money
Schultz
in this league.
got banged up. I apologize. Dalton Schultz got nicked up as well.
Right. So you missing those guys in the red zone, that doesn't help your case. But at the same time, you have to be better than 1 for 5. That's not going to get it done week in and week out. That'll catch up with you next week against Denver if you play a team like that and you don't cash in and get touchdowns. Now, I do know that D'Amico and that team are willing to take those threes because I think they have a lot of confidence in what they do defensively. But when you play teams like Denver, you play teams that can put up a bunch of points up in a short period of time. You don't want to give them too many shots on goal. You got to finish those drives. And so, some of the, I don't want to put it on play calling, but I just think that there were times where everybody was covered up. Guys were not open. CJ didn't make bad decisions and compound a situation where you're trying to force it or anything like that. So then you're taking all points off the board. And so, hey, you took the check down, the team rallied and tackled, and so you had to settle for 3. So, when you have those guys that you can throw a fade to, like Nico Collins, or you have a guy that's a surgeon in the slot like Christian Kirk, when you don't have those guys in the lineup, now you're dealing with other people. But I thought overall that the receivers played well, played well in between the 20s, but they just have to figure out ways to get open and get those guys open in the red zone so they can cash in on those downs.
Yeah, I think if we wanted to nitpick, no pun intended, I think Kaylee has to be more definitive in some of the route combinations and some of the play designs down in the red area, specifically in the low red. When you have to cash in down there, I don't believe, Wade, that they have a ton of confidence, and I'm looking no rushing touchdowns today for anybody, and specifically with the two running backs that got carries. Well, Dare got one carry, but really good teams, you have to be able to run the football down in the low red. And I just don't think their makeup right now. I know what they say, I know what they're trying to do, but I don't know that they have the personnel and or the confidence to be able to do that. So I think that also contributed to coming up short down there in the low red specifically. But like I said, you got to crawl before you walk. And so today, it was enough today, right? The cliche, you got to go 1-0, and they did enough today. Now, again, we'll talk about the San Francisco offense, but we have to be also fair. That is not a good San Francisco defense, just given the number of injuries they had coming into the day, as well as the number of guys that took some time out or took some time off due to injury today. So if they were going up against a better unit like they're going to face next week, I think this outcome might have been different, but it was enough today. But they have to get better at running the football when everybody knows you're going to run it.
Yeah, if there's one thing from this game that I want to know what kind of deal Robert Sala's agent got for him, because I've never seen them focus on a assistant coach as much as they did on the TV broadcast today. I mean, like every 10 seconds you look over there, they got the camera on Robert Saleh. I'm like, damn, Kyle Shanahan can't even get a look today. That sucks for him. No, that defense definitely wasn't good. You mentioned the running backs though, Stan. There, guys, we keep seeing the running back by committee thing, but is there obviously there's more growing confidence in what you're getting out of Woody Marks because he keeps going out there and making some plays. I know, Stan, you don't like to trust rookies and whatnot, but that's okay. What do you guys think about where they're going in terms of the direction, at least running the football? Because obviously, I know trade deadline's coming up and whatnot, but there's still no Joe Mixon. Are we still feeling like you can at least get back on track with these two as the main guys every single week?
I think it's just a matter of how you're using them. I mean, you mentioned Joe Mixon and him not being there. You talk about the red zone issues. That's a huge factor in it right there. If Joe Mixon's in the reds if on the roster and he's playing like he normally is, I think a lot of the red zone issues that you've seen this year, it wouldn't be the same deal. But you got a young guy, and then you got a guy that's coming off an injury. Where Nick Chubb is not the Nick Chubb that he has been historically, but he's a serviceable, good football player right now. And then you got a young guy in Woody Marks. It's just figuring out ways to get them the ball in the best way where they can be effective right now. And so, I haven't seen any angle routes to Woody Marks in the red zone. I would love to see that. I mean, Woody Marks is the type of guy that I think if you line him up out as a receiver, he can get open and catch passes on people. He's just a really good receiving running back. And so just figuring out ways to get them the ball, whether maybe you use them on some type of misdirection or a jet sweep or something to where you can be a little bit more creative with how you're doing things. But I just think that the overall, with what you're seeing offensively out of the Texans, hey, can you get some consistency up front out of the offensive line? I think that will help with the consistency what you get from the running backs. All these things go hand in hand. Woody Marks is not, I'm going to run you over and truck you type guy, but you get him in space and he can make people miss. He can run through arm tackles. He's an effective guy. So I think it's just up to Nick Caley to figure out ways to be more effective with him. But, there's not going to be anybody walking off the butts that don't look like anytime soon. So that's who you got to work with. You got to work with Nick Chubb. You got to work with Woody Marks. And you see that you're not getting anything out of Dare, and you're not getting anything out of I can't even think of my guy's name.
Damian Pierce.
Damian Pierce, you're not getting anything out of Damian Pierce, and so those are the two guys that you're gonna have to work with. And so, like I said, it's gonna be incumbent on those guys to continue to improve, especially Woody Marks as a rookie, and then Nick Chubb getting, I guess you could say, fresher and farther away from his injury to where maybe he can pick up his production as well. But today was a good day at the office, and so if you're just looking at what they did today, I thought that they were very effective. You to try to figure out ways to sustain that and be consistent with that week in and week out going forward.
I was trying to look real quick while Wade was talking. I'm guessing right off the top of my head, what did I say? They had 28 combined carries between Marks and Chubb. I'm guessing that's the highest volume those two have had all season combined. And I was trying to just go do a quick glance and take a look at that. But That's a recipe for how they can have some success moving forward. There is a benefit. We talk about those old Patriot teams. You know, they would line up different people in different places. They would rotate those running backs through. I actually wouldn't mind seeing Woody Marks line up in you know, maybe not out wide from an X receiver standpoint, but I wouldn't mind. I think he's a capable enough receiver that you could line him up in the slot in certain formations, line him up on a 3-by-1, and he could be the inside receiver there. So maybe that's part of the evolution of the offense. But I thought the volume today was telling. And if that's a formula, as long as CJ isn't turning over the ball and you know, they aren't fumbling the football. I know CJ had the one interception today, and it didn't come back to bite them. They were still in complete control of the ball game by and large. It was a 2-score game to the very end. So I just want to see that moving forward. I would like to get a healthy Joe Mixon for this second half of the season. Or if they're going to make a deal for a back, I'm guessing they won't. By the way, Brees Hall was active today, so he's healthy and he's out there on the field for those that are checking on that. But yeah, I don't think this one, from an offensive standpoint, I don't think there's too much else we can say. Offensive line was solid. They ran the ball. The red zone was obviously the most glaring weakness, if you will. Kindly was clutch. The young guys played good ball. Higgins gets in the end zone. 9 different receivers touching the ball. I mean, on offense, you pretty much got to go check, 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 check. Other than time of possession we discussed, other than the going 1 for 5 in the red zone. Can't hear you, Mike.
I have to hit the button. I have to hit the button to unmute myself. The one receiver I did want to ask you guys about of the rookie receivers of the Cyclone trio, Noel. We've seen maybe he's taken the leap forward here to be that, you know, next trusted guy for this offense more than anybody else.
He looked like he belonged. That's the biggest thing to me. He looked like the plays he was making, it didn't look surprising to him. It didn't feel surprising as I mean, you hadn't really seen him get that many opportunities going into this week. But with Nico Collins not out there, with no Christian Kirk, I just felt like they in what he did last week, I think they felt like, you know, hey, we have more confidence. And CJ had more confidence in him as a guy that you want to force the ball to or get the ball to. And he played very well today. He looked very much so like a guy that was ready to take that next step and be someone that you can be counted on to make plays for the team, whether it's converting on third downs, making big catches on play action passes down the field. He was just very effective all day long. So that was good to see. And you saw glimpses of that in the preseason, of them just getting the ball out to him quickly and him breaking tackles on little screens and things of that nature. But he was running all kind of routes today and making all kind of plays today. And that's what you're going to need. And you have a guy like that. And if you can get healthy at the receiver position, now that receiving core looks all that more strong. If you have a Nico Collins and a Christian Kirk and a Jalen Noel, and then you got some effective play out of Xavier Hutchinson and Jaden Higgins today as well. So I was very happy for the Iowa State trio, and very much so. Noel was the main guy that I just seemed like consistently made the most plays.
I'm thinking about my man.
Say anything yeah, you want to say anything nice to the Iowa State guys?
I've been saying nice things all show. They showed up. They played well.
I'll
When
show.
the whole show, I'm saying. Listen, my man No Man Scott is one of the followers we have on social, and during training camp, he mentioned to me that he thought Noel was going to be the one between he and Higgins would be the one to emerge and ultimately be the biggest contributor from those the 2 rookie wide receivers. The thing that it looks like to me, you get the chunk plays. So of Noel's 63 receiving yards, 44 of those were on one play. So you know you can get those explosives, and you got to have those. We know what Tank Dell has previously occupied that space, along with Nico Collins, of course. The other thing, other than the explosive, because we all know all you need is that one play. When a game is nip and tuck and in the balance, and it's late in the ball game, and you got to have that one chunk yardage to climb back in the game or to put that opponent away. the way that teams are going to treat Nico and how the respect they're going to have for Christian Kirk when he's healthy, and it's the second piece of that is CJ having the confidence for Noel in those scenarios. It looks to me like they're building real good chemistry and that Noel is earning CJ's trust to look that way in some of those critical moments. So all of that's positive all across the board. I do want to acknowledge my man Hutch led the team in receiving today. 3 different receivers with 5 catches. Hutch was one of those, and then he led the team 69 yards, 13.8 yards per reception, and of course the touchdown for Hutch. So I celebrate my man Hutch as well with those Iowa State 3.
Good day for all those guys out there on the field. Good day for the defense as well. We're not giving a lot of love to them. Let's talk a little bit about the defensive effort next year in the Locked On Texans Squad show. Before we get to that discussion on the Texans defense, which was fantastic, you could go see them in person because NFL season is back. And honestly, there's nothing better than going to the game and being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering for your team. Let's be honest, getting tickets can be, well, it's a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Like you can just pull up Gametime right now, in just a couple of taps, you'll find amazing deals all from those NFL games and really those Texans games and anybody that you're looking for every single day with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Gametime today. Squad show continues. Michael Connor and Wade Smith, former Texans offensive lineman, and Stan Norfleet breaking down the Texans' victory over the 49ers today by a final of 26-15. Texans now 3-4 on the season and 2-1 at home. They weren't loud at any point today, guys, but you could see it on the TV at least. It did appear that there were a lot of 49ers fans there, as you expect.
Oh, a ton, yeah.
Moving
around in the city this weekend, you can see the 49ers people were there. They were in there now. John Hickman sent something to me. He said, Stan, he tweeted it to me. He said, you would not be pleased with the Texans crowd today. He said it was overwhelming 49er fans in the building.
Hey, man, double up your money on your tickets. I don't blame those people sometimes.
There's certain franchises that travel well. It's the Steelers, the Steelers, the Cowboys, the
Green Bay.
49ers, the Packers. There's certain franchises that I don't care how good your team or how bad your team is, they're gonna pay money. The Bears, they travel well. They're gonna figure out ways to get tickets to those games. So I ain't mad at that. What I am mad at is there's all these complaints about getting people in the stadium on time for the game to start. And the reason why people aren't in the stadium is because it takes too dang long to get into to park because the traffic is terrible getting there. Today, I got at 610 in Maine at 11:20. I didn't get inside the stadium until 12:01. So it took me 40 minutes to get from 610 in Maine to the green lot into the building. So and it was, I was like, I normally get to the games way earlier than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't experience that part. So you wonder, like, where everybody at? They're trying to park.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out a way to get in there. So they got to do better with that, man. You got to make it easier to get people in there to park so that they can get into the stadium. But I digress.
Maybe they'll have a new stadium in the next 10 years, and that won't be a problem at the new stadium.
Perhaps.
Could be.
Anything's possible.
We'll see what happens with that. Let's talk about the defensive effort, though, again today. Really, I think it's pretty amazing. Now, they racked up some plays later on in the game. Mac Jones ended up with 32 pass attempts. But you go look at the box score today. I mean, it's how bad they had San Francisco down. They only ran the ball 10 times today, 8 of those times to Christian McCaffrey for a whopping 48 yards as a team. Really, they did their thing again all day, guys. Is this just another week where you're walking away going, this truly is why this can be so frustrating is because you have a Super Bowl capable defense and you really need to take advantage of this?
I'll start with I think this defense is showing you it doesn't matter who the opponent is. They're gonna the other teams are professionals too. They're going to get their pound of flesh. But when you can rush the passer the way they rush the passer, and when you got guys on the interior that are making plays, that rotation of those defensive linemen, Tommy Togiai continues to show up on the tape and make plays in the run game. And then when you have linebackers, I saw EJ Speed carrying, I think that was a wide receiver. I saw EJ Speed going down the seam carrying a wide receiver 20, 30, 40 yards down the field, his athletic ability. I saw Henry Toto about decapitated. Christian McCaffrey coming across the field, running to the football. You know the effort you're going to get out of Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter. And then when you get guys that can cover like that on the back end, Jalen Petrie playing physical, that's really the perfect spot for him playing that big slot, if you will, or big nickel, excuse me, playing that big nickel that he plays. Lassiter taking away the football, I thought was excellent. Today, to me, it was just business as usual. And Wade, I come to you with this. It's easier to do that when you can make a team truly one-dimensional. Christian McCaffrey was not a factor in the run game all day. So when you take him and you check out of it and you make Mac Jones have to beat you with his arm, they just don't have the weaponry with Brandon Ayuk being injured and Pascal, their first round wide receiver from a year ago, being out of the lineup today as well. We know Deebo Samuels is in Washington now. So I think it just worked in concert together. And when you make a team one dimensional, this is the type of result when you got the effort, and we know that they're coached up well over there.
Yeah, you make a great point about them being coached up well at the end there. Like, that's the matchup that you want to look at going into this game. You got Kyle Shanahan going against D'Amico Ryans, two guys that are very familiar with each other and that know what each other is trying to do and to be successful in. Stopping them to where they only could run the ball 10 times in the game, you're putting yourself, you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back when you talk about going against this Texans defense. When you talk about the pass rush and the amount of times that Mac Jones got hit, not all the times he got sacked, but the times he got hit, the times he got pressured throughout the game, it was fun to watch. And there was some battles going on up there. When you got Will Anderson going against Trent Williams, bull rushing him in the red zone, and he almost gets there. Like, there was some good stuff going on there. You saw Will Anderson get chipped, doesn't matter, still gets home, gets sacked. Like, there's a lot of big time play by the name guys for the Texans on defense. But then you also had you had guys like the Tommy T's and, like you said, the EJ Speeds that was just making plays throughout the game. That's what you've seen all year long out of Texans, and this was another performance just like that. I will add this when we talk about the defense, though. They struggled a little bit in some games, a lot of bit earlier in this year when they talked about just tackling, just fundamental tackling and making plays in space. I felt like that, I saw, especially early on in the game, Jalen Petrie one-on-one making tackles, getting off the field on third down. I feel like that over the past few weeks, it has to been emphasized, and they've done a better job of just overall tackling on that defense. And so you see the results. You see the fact that quarterbacks are not comfortable when you're playing against the Texans. You're seeing the fact that, you're not seeing a lot of missed tackles and chunk plays being converted from those missed tackles that you saw earlier on in the year. And so you see another effective performance by the Texans defense.
I'm glad you brought up Jalen Petrie. I don't know about you guys. I
Mhm.
really thought he played his best game of the season today.
I mean, he led the team in tackles, 8 combined tackles, a tackle for a loss, physical in the run game. Yeah, 5 was running around making some plays, no doubt.
I mean, yeah, really up and down through. I mean, it's another week with this Houston Texans football team where they just go out there and they
Let me also add this while I'm
uh-huh.
thinking about it, because Wade, I'm just replaying what you just said. I don't know that I've ever seen a Kyle Shanahan offense, especially coached by himself, but I've never seen Kyle Shanahan that I can recall leave a game having only run the ball 10 times. That's just so uncharacteristic of what we know about that Shanahan tree.
Well, I think what it was is you got to think about it, the time of possession and the fact that the Texans were scoring consistently. When you talk about the
Mhm.
amount of drives that they had throughout the game, they weren't always scoring touchdowns, but they were at least scoring field goals, kicking field goals. I think I think he kind of got a little impatient because the first few
Bingo.
drives, I believe they were 3-and-out the first three drives of the game. And so you 3-and-out first three drives of the game, and you're already down, I think 6-0 by that tournament. It might have been 13 nothing. Like, listen, you start saying, hey, we got to figure out ways to make plays. And so, those carries go to the wayside, and I think that's what happened today. I think that whole idea of complementary football, you saw that today for the first time, where the offense did what they supposed to do, and then the defense did what they've been doing all year long, and the special teams did what they're supposed to do as well. This was the most complete game that I've seen from the Texans this year.
The
I would
special
say that.
teams outside of Kaimi Fairbairn's kick, which got
Yeah,
D'Amico Ryan's vision.
yeah.
Clearly,
This kickoff
he
thing
was
with Kaimi.
he was frustrated on the sideline with that
He
one.
was. This kickoff thing is an issue that Frank Ross and D'Amico and Kaimi, something tell me they're gonna have a lot of conversation starting tomorrow and get that thing worked out. But I think D'Amico would certainly take this effort, and it's got to feel good for him. If you listen to D'Amico's commentary this week in the media, he got pressed this week now, and I'm be honest, I didn't love all his answers. Yeah, there was some things, and I'm not the only one. I thought the heat got to him a little bit, and I think this type of collective performance will again get the guys to buy in another week, and it will alleviate some of the noise and allow them to focus this week on just going to prepare and get ready for a good Denver Broncos team. But yeah, I think I'm not ready to say that the Texans are back. I am appreciative that the effort overall, the performance was better today. That looks more like the Texans we thought we would get to start the year, especially with Nico Collins and Christian Kirk, your top two wide receivers, being out.
I'm glad you asked that question. So, I mean, we're going to get a little bit of a preview quickly into Broncos before we get out of here, and then we'll get deeper into it on Tuesday. But whatever, if they repeated this performance next week, Stan, I'm going to go ahead and guess you're probably not going to say that they'd be back at that point, but would you have a better feeling that they're on their way?
They replicate this type of
Yeah.
performance. It may not be the same score, it may
Right.
not be the same margin of victory, but if they go out there and the pieces work, then I will say, okay, now we got something, right? You got back-to-back weeks, and okay, against quality opponents, certainly not, the injuries and all of that, but like that's still Kyle Shanahan. Like I said, Trent Williams, and you still had several starters on that San Fran defense, and you got several starters on that offense. So I still categorize this more like a Ravens win. I put it in that category. But if the effort and the execution is like this next week, yeah, we can begin to talk about the Texans being back.
What about you, Wade?
Ask that question again.
If they repeat their performance, a similar type of performance next week against the Broncos, is this something that's going to make you feel like, yeah, this team's actually taking the steps towards, maybe not necessarily being back, but like on their way to maybe us saying, hey, they're back?
Listen, if you play next week like you played this week and you get to 500, now you can have serious conversations about, all right, this team being back in the playoff hunt. What we saw last week, people talking about the playoffs, I think that was, you might need to take a step back and realize we need to figure out how to win a game. You need to figure out how to beat San Francisco, and that's what they did this week. They
Mhm.
locked in and they got it done this week. If they can put that another performance next week against the Denver Broncos, a team like the Denver Broncos, like this that you saw today, then now you have more confidence to say, okay, you can string together some wins and put yourself in a position to where you can be a wild card team. I don't think reaching for the division championship, that's not a realistic expectation right now, just based off of how the Colts have been playing so far this year and what their
Mhm.
schedule is going to be in front of them. They're playing I think a third or fourth place schedule. So, you're going to have a lot of slouches on that
They're
schedule for
already
them.
up 10-0 on the Titans after the first quarter, so they're on their way to 7-1.
Right. So, division championship. Okay, cool. That doesn't seem like an attainable goal, but getting into the dance, and once you get into the dance, all bets are off. Just figure out a way to go on the road and get a win. That's what's going to be on the agenda for the Texans. But if you can put a performance together like this, I think that'll give a tremendous amount of confidence uh, for the guys in the locker room, as well as the fan base, as well as this city. I think the city will get back behind this team if you can see a performance like that from the Texans next week.
Right now, the Broncos are up 14-3 versus the Cowboys at Mile High. So we'll keep our eyes on what's going on with that ball game. I'm trying to also, guys, take a peek at what's going on, some of these injury reports. Dalton Schultz is the only one that I can recall. I know Stingley got nicked up, but he ran off the field under his own power. I know, he's been battling through that oblique. Do y'all recall anybody else, missing some snaps due to injury?
Barrios at some point, right?
Barrios, that's right. He did as well. So I was just trying to keep my eyes on what's going on. And then hopefully Christian Kirk, that'll be 2 weeks that he's been nursing that hammy, 3 weeks by the time we get the kickoff next Sunday. So let's hope Christian Kirk can get back in there. And we'll start having this conversation too. Maybe MC, you and I and John may kick this around. Based on what we saw from the young guys today, those young wide receivers, yes, you would like to have Christian Kirk, don't mistake me. But do you think they can afford, if Christian Kirk has to miss next week, or if it's close, hey, Kirk, get your hamstring fully healthy for the following week versus the Jaguars, I do believe, and we'll just try and get develop these young guys is what I'm trying to say. Would you rush Kirk back, or would you let the young guys have another bite at the apple?
I think it's a great question that we can kick around briefly and then take a quick little look ahead to next week as well for a brief second before we get out of here. Locked on Texans Squad show continues after this. FanDuel is what I want to tell you about now because, football season is here. NBA season is also back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making a late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Our final few minutes of the Locked on Texans Squad show after the victory over the 49ers this afternoon. Michael Connor, Wade Smith, former Texans lineman, and Stan Norfleet with you. John will join us. He was there at the game today. He'll join us Tuesday as we get our final thoughts in here, guys. With this Texans team, you asked that question there, Stan, though, real quick. Just wanted to give we can get deeper into it Tuesday, but I don't know, guys. I don't want to downplay Christian Kirk at all, but Christian Kirk is constantly hurt and didn't do a lot when he played this year. I'm liking the Jalen Noel train right now. I'm in on Jalen Noel. Am I wrong for that? Keep playing him.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong for having that feeling and that sentiment because Jalen Noel is playing. He's playing, I think, above expectations. I think over the last couple of weeks, he's playing very well. At the same time, with Barrios probably being out, to me, you don't want to rush either one of those older guys back. Older guys, Christian Kirk, Barrios, they're out with injuries, with the hamstrings, things like that. You don't want to rush them back. And if you have young, fresh guys that are playing at a good clip, you're going to go with those young guys anyway. So I would say let's not rush back Christian Kirk and play Jalen well. And, you got Higgins and you got Hudson, and the guy that you're really excited about potentially getting back is Nico Collins because with concussions, they're usually a 1 week deal. And especially since they played on Monday night, that lost one of the potential games one of the potential days that you would have to get back from that injury. So hopefully with 2 weeks away from the Monday night game, you can get Nico Collins back. And I think that you won't miss Christian Kirk much at all.
All right, Stan, you can answer your question real quick, and then we'll get deeper into it Tuesday.
I'd like to have Christian Kirk if I can get him, but if it's close and he really it's one of those, if it was a playoff game, I'd go. but I really could use another week, then I would teeter on being cautious with him because you're gonna need Kirk to make this playoff run. And I'd run with those young guys again. I'd see if they could replicate their performance because that's essentially the future. CJ Stroud's gonna be tossing the ball to Higgins and Noel and Hutchinson for a little while. So let's go ahead and get that rolling if it's close. But if I can have Kirk, I'd like to.
I tell you what, Stan, I'm gonna tell you something right now. I'm proud of you. For the first time, I think on this show, you're starting to come around to the young guys. You might trust a rookie before the end of the season. I know he'll be like 16 games into the season in his career already, but you know what? It counts.
When dudes play well, I'm going to say they played well. Do I have some apprehensions? Yes. Are there some other younger guys that I would have rather had than the young guys we have? Yes. But here's what it is. The guys went out there and put on blue uniforms today. They look good and they play good ball today. So
they look good, those uniforms. I love those uniforms.
They
too.
do look. Oh, I saw this. Aaron Wilson, the Iowa State trio, 14 catches, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns on 20 targets. So good for Cyclone football today.
Yeah, good day for things. I think the Cyclones lost this weekend.
Did they? I didn't think the score. I know Virginia won. That's all I'm really concerned about.
Yeah, he snuck one out there. One out.
Versus old Billy Belichick. We got one. Go Hoos.
I think Wade had a good weekend too when it came to college football. I think I'm right on that one. Didn't you get a win?
Back in the top 25, back in the draft. Shout out to my Memphis Tigers. Got a big win over USF. That was big. That was big for the Tiger program. Looking to get back not back to, but looking to get to a point to where we do something we've never done in the history of the program, was to be in the college football playoff. And so right now we're in the driver's seat. We went out, and that's where we're going.
There you go. Next week for the Texans, they might not need to win out the rest of the season. We talked about it there briefly with the Denver Broncos coming to town. Just a quick little glance ahead. If there's one thing that the Texans need to take from this one more than anything else today to that Broncos game, it's what? Stan, we'll start with you there.
Oh, really good question, MC. One thing they can take, I'm going to say what Wade opened up the show with when he joined us. That offensive line plays like that again, each and every week, they're going to give this team an opportunity. It's not just the sack. CJ Stroud not sacked today. Obviously, if Bosa or Fred Warner, if Huff, who they got from the Jets, he was out with a hamstring, I believe, today. Yeah, when you get better players, it's going to improve the likelihood that CJ would have been sacked. And let's be clear, the Broncos do have Nick Bonito. He's an all-pro. They got guys that can get after the pass over there. But today, no sacks. CJ was only pressured, from what I can see, by the box score twice. 2 hits on the quarterback. And last week in Seattle, what was hiding down there in the box score, 10 tackles for loss. Today, just 3. So the offensive line was running. They were allowing the backs to run the football, and they were keeping the opposition out of the backfield and off the quarterback. That's a formula for success next week.
Wade, what do you think?
I tell you what, man, if they can continue to get after the quarterback like they did this week, because that would have been my first thought as the offensive line playing, but since Stan said that, defensively, I want to see the best game from the defensive line next week against Denver Broncos. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball all over the place. Bo Nix is a problem. He can scramble. He has the arm. He can make every throw. If they can make Bo Nix look like Mac Jones looked today, if they can make Bo Nix look like a guy that's going to turn the ball over and make mistakes, and they can keep them, because historically the Texas defense has had trouble with quarterbacks that can scramble and also make the throws, with the Lamar Jacksons, with the Josh Allens, those type of guys. I think Bo Nix is in that category. So if they can play well up front with those front 4 guys, allow the back 7 to cover, that to me, that's going to be a huge factor in seeing the Texans come out with a W next week against Denver.
All right, one question as we leave. Will we be having that positive conversation next week? Let's just go ahead and get the early thought out there right now. Will we be doing this show going, hey, they beat the Denver Broncos?
Hopefully. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say hopefully. I'm not gonna say what they gonna do, because they've shown me that they can do it, and they've shown me that they can look terrible out there as well.
You know
And
what?
so the thing about it is can you figure out some consistency? Like I say, if you can get back-to-back performances out of the Texans up front, like you got today, if you can add one more to it, then now you can start talking with more confidence about what you're gonna get, because you're establishing an identity of who you are. Right now, the identity is inconsistency. So I want to see them string another win together, another good performance together. Then I can start saying, hey, yeah, I expect them to do this, or I think that I believe that they'll do that. Right now, we're not at that place yet. So I'm gonna say, hopefully, 'cause you're gonna need that type of performance for them to get it done. Because I think the Denver Broncos is a good football team. The Cowboys are figuring it out right now.
Stan?
This is tough, and I'm reading the comments and people having a good time. They're waiting on me to say something hyperbolic. Uh, I can't get out of my head the Texans are 3-4. I can't get out of my head the 3 wins and the conditions of those wins, meaning the injuries, the opponent, the talent level, versus what they look like and how they played when we've seen them versus better competition. So if you were to ask me right now, I would say I'm probably not prepared to pick the Texans to win versus the Broncos next Sunday. Let's look at the injury report. Let's see how the Broncos play today. And then from there, we'll make a prediction when we get close to the game time. But right now, I can't ignore they're beating teams when they are not at their best, and they're losing to better teams when those teams are at their best.
I tell you what, for me, I'm going to keep it consistent just because this is the baseball guy in me believing in the superstitions. I picked them to lose this past week. I said they were going to lose, so I'm going to pick them to lose again this next week and pray that that keeps happening, that they just win when I pick them to lose. So I think that they're going to lose next weekend against the Denver Broncos. What I
MC and superstitious. Go ahead.
yeah, me and my superstitions. What I do know is that when the game ends next weekend, we'll be right back here, guys, live on the
God
show.
willing.
As soon as it ends, Wade, Stan, and we will see. I think we'll see about John if he's doing his whole being a media member or whatnot next weekend as well.
Credentialed member of the media.
Yes, credential member of the
I
media.
used to have one of those.
Yeah, and me too. Way back in the day, I used to go in there, a young me, go into that locker room and ask Wade Smith questions that probably annoyed him at some point. But the Texans will play the Broncos next Sunday. It's a 12:00 game. We'll be back live as soon as it ends. Don't forget to join us Tuesday as well for the midweek shows. We'll take a look back on this one a little bit more, and then a deeper look at the Denver Broncos ahead. For Wade and Stan, thank you for joining us live here today. Make sure you hit subscribe on the channel. Make sure that you're checking out John's daily work with the Locked On Texans podcast as well. Have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll talk Tuesday on the Locked On Texans Squad show.